It's Patrick Halstead here at Qdabra Software, and I want to welcome you to our webinar this morning. I hope you're doing well wherever you may be. We are taping the webinar, so if you want to see it again, we'll have it up on YouTube later today or tomorrow. We also have a lot of content available to you today to take away. We'll be sending you that packet, and I'll have the information at the end of the webinar about how to get that list of references. Let's see here. I just want to check, Marcy, do you want to start recording? You haven't already? And we still have a few people joining us here. If you have joined us and you are ready to partake, please change your color to purple, and then we'll know that we have everyone. And that's the feedback up in the upper right-hand corner. So you should be able to see that. And most people are ready. Thank you for your feedback. Natalia and Al, we're just waiting for you to give the thumbs up here with the purple. Just go to the feedback and mark purple, and we should be fine there. Okay, so today we are talking about Office 365 and specifically what you need to do to get the browser to work, the browser forms, InfoPath Forms to work in 365. Now, we've had some challenges. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, we're working for, we've got a few partners that we're helping out with 365, and we noticed that we had some issues with our version of our code that we're using for Office 365, our Q rules. And so we had to make some changes, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to talk to you today about this. That we thought we had everything right back in May of last year, and we went out with a couple different accelerators for Office 365, and it turns out that there was a CAPTCHA, and that is that the Sandbox doesn't quite work the same way with Office 365 as it does with SharePoint. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I have quite a few demos to show you today, but the key takeaways for today are, number one, Office 365 is cool. In fact, I'm just going to switch to my little dashboard here. You can see that in 365 I've got Exchange, I've got Link, SharePoint Online. Of course, I get all my Office desktop apps too. And so it's really a nice cloud offering here that Microsoft has put together. They've had it out for almost a year now, and we've been using it. Lots of people are picking it up and looking at it seriously. It is, for these 4 items here, it's only $25 or $24 a month per user. So for small businesses, it's really actually it makes sense. A lot of small businesses are paying money to Exchange servers out there to host their Exchange, and they need to get some kind of a live meeting or a WebEx. A lot of those are free, but some people do pay for those. And they're looking for SharePoint hosting. And so when you package all these together, that $25 a month, with the Office licenses included, that's not such a bad deal. And that's why Office 365 is really in the limelight, so to speak, right now, or it's got the focus of attention, because it has a nice value proposition there. We're actively working with our partners and our customers to enable them to use Office 365, and we were called on by Microsoft in April of last year to do some training on Office 365. Microsoft, they came to us and they said, look, we've got this Channel 9 site that we use to help people get up to speed on our technologies. And I don't know if you've been to the Channel 9 site, but Channel 9 is a location on the Microsoft Training Network where they have a lot of free webinars, hands-on labs, things like that. I encourage you to go there if you haven't been there. There'll be a link at the end of the slides to some content. So they came to us and they said, well, we've noticed that on the Channel 9 site, the number one searched for topic is InfoPath. And you guys are the InfoPath experts because you have more InfoPath MVPs than anyone else. Can you help us write some content for Office 365 launch? And the launch was in May. So we put together 4 different hands-on labs and training for Office 365, and I'll have links to those at the end of the presentation. So definitely InfoPath Form Services is a major feature in Office 365. Unfortunately, it's only in that enterprise SKU, what they call E3. And you don't get it if you're just using the $5 a month plan. you have to go to the enterprise SKU, which still, the enterprise SKU is still a good deal because you look at all the things that you're getting for that, $25 a month per person. So with InfoPath Form Services, you need to use the Sandbox when you're doing advanced techniques. I'm going to show you two techniques here, and let me just quickly show you those. So I have my Office 365 site here, logged in as an admin. I'm going to switch to another view here. And you can see that when you go to the SharePoint online stuff as an admin, you get these different, you can manage your site collections, you can configure InfoPath Form Services. Now you're definitely going to want to make sure this is turned on your, if you have Office 365, and that's on by default, I think. So, but if you just want to check it, that's a good idea. And then you can configure the site collections. Now I've got one major site collection here I'm going to switch to, and oops, I want to show you that just quite yet here. Okay, so I've got a SharePoint site here, and this is just my default site. And on this site I've got some libraries and some lists. I've actually got a picture library. So I'm just going to go to this library here. Okay, so I have a library, and this library, form library, is going to open a form in the browser. And Mel has been helping me prepare this demo. And this form, you can see, is getting a name of the user and the date timestamp. Sometimes the date timestamp is hard to read, so you can change the formatting of that if you want. But so she submitted an expense report to me, and here you see it. It's in the browser, of course, and you can see that we've used our standard look and feel here, our InfoPath starter form, and that comes with a header, a little help section here that you can expand and collapse. It comes with some information about whether the form is submitted or new. You'll see, when I create a new one in a second, you'll see that change to new there at the top. You got a nice tagline. It's the title of the form. In this case, we probably should have named it Expense Report Sample. We just left the existing default title there. We've got buttons to save or submit. Once again, a lot of times you want to save without necessarily fixing all the validation, but you don't want to give users the save button at the top here. You want to disable those. We haven't done that, but you want to disable that. Just use a button here for both the save and submit, and that gives you more control so that they can't save it off somewhere else. For example, click Save As and change the name. And so this form comes with that default functionality, and we've added this expense report items here. And the first thing I want to show you is this repeating section. Now I've got this repeating section. Actually, it is. Let's just see how this works here. So I've got a new expense, and this expense is going to be today, and we'll call this my morale budget. So we're going to do donuts with the team. Let's see how donuts are. So yesterday we'll do cupcakes. Cupcake party. Okay. And there's some confection place in downtown Kirkland here, and we'll just call it Sweet Confection. I forget the name. And it's a big whopping $19.10. Okay, so I'm going to submit the form. Oh, notice I can actually add a receipt here. So let's just do that at the same time. So I'll just click on this little button here, and I'll insert an image. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to insert the image. So we'll remove that guy. And notice the browser functions a little bit differently than, you don't get the Control-Z option. So we'll add a picture, and I'm just going to add a picture. I've got a receipt. Well, actually, we went to the, let's say we went to the Blackberry Diner instead. We decided not to do the cupcakes, bad for your health. So we added this image here. And you can see we've got the image now of the receipt. We'll change the, update the, I'll just say here, Blackberry Diner. And notes. Let's see, afternoon desserts with the team. Okay, and then and we'll change this here to the Blackberry Diner. Be consistent. Sweets. Okay. And that probably should be the other way around. But anyway, you get the idea. So I've attached an image and I've attached an item. Now I'm going to submit the form. And I'll add a note first. We'll prove it. Looks good. I'll set that status. Notice when I do that, it's hitting the server to update that table down below. And then we'll submit the form. Okay, and this is going to hit the server again. What it's going to do is it's going to save the form out. And we have a list here on the left. You'll see we have an expense items list. And you can see that that Blackberry Diner item in the repeating section for the form. So the first thing to note, the first cool technique here is we can map repeating sections in an InfoPath form to a SharePoint list. Now, we've talked about this in the past. It's a very, very commonly requested feature. And if we go back to that form and open this up in the browser, you'll see that there's my Blackberry Diner. And then when I submitted it, it actually saved that item to the SharePoint list. And I can update it. I can say donuts instead of sweets. And I'll save it again. Or submit it. And I can go back to my list here, and you can see that it didn't create a new one. It just updated the one that was there, okay, with the $19. Now, the other thing that we see, so this is really cool. A lot of people want to take the repeating data in an InfoPath form and they want to map it out to a SharePoint list. And we used to do this using web services. But in Office 365, you can't do it with web services, and that's because web services are not supported in the Sandbox. You have to use the SharePoint DLL, the object model DLL. There's a SharePoint DLL. It's a special one that's used in Office 365. It's not the same as SharePoint 2010. You'll have a link at the end of the presentation, and in the packet of presentation material that you get, that shows you, actually I can go there right now. I'll just quickly switch to that link here to show you what I mean. It's got to be here somewhere. Here it is. I think this is it. So this is the first of two links. So there are, first of all, you're going to be using the Sandbox. And for those of you who don't know what the Sandbox is, the Sandbox, for any of these advanced techniques that require code, and the first two techniques I'm showing you today require code, you need to use the Sandbox. The Sandbox was introduced in SharePoint 2010, and it's, the way I describe it to people is it's kind of like when you take your kids to the playground. There's a Sandbox. There's always a Sandbox in the playground. Let me just go back here, sorry. When you take your kids to the playground, they play in the Sandbox, and there's a lot of other kids. And if those kids misbehave and there's one Sandbox, then they throw sand around, then the other kids get impacted, and they all melt down. Well, that was the situation in 2007. So in 2010, Microsoft introduced multiple sandboxes. So each kid can have his own place to throw sand. And he will only affect, or she will only affect, her own situation. So for badly behaved InfoPath forms, in 2010, they've got a sandbox, and they're not going to impact other processes. This is a huge improvement in 2010. However, there are restrictions, and that's what this page will go through. And then there's also another page on special APIs that are available for the Sandbox solution. So SharePoint DLL you need to use this when you're calling web services on SharePoint. And the number one web service you're going to want to call is that lists ASMX, that lists SOAP web service. That web service allows you to take those repeating items in the InfoPath form and move them to a list. Okay, and so you can't just connect to that lists web service and save your items out there. You have to actually write code to use the object model. And I've got samples of that code if people are interested after the webinar. But the key thing there is that well, there's two things. There's a gotcha when you're trying to preview it, but the key thing here is that you cannot use typical web service calls from InfoPath with Office 365. You can with SharePoint. SharePoint 2010, no problem. Office 365, the sandboxes aren't the same. They are more restricted, and you can't just use out-of-the-box web services with them. They won't work, and that's the key takeaway here, is that you need to use a different approach. We have packaged that approach into our Q rules library with 4.1 coming out soon. You'll get that as part of this It'll be injected in the sample form. If you want to use it in other forms, you can contact us. We can give you a discount if you came to the class today. Okay, so kind of back and forth. Let me show you one more thing here that's kind of cool. So first thing was the lists, and we have our library here, our expense report. So that's the one that's edited. Notice that when I added that receipt, I attached the image, right? And if I go to my donuts item here, you can see that image there. Now I can't really see the image, right? It's hard to see, so I got this little plus sign here, and I can expand it, and there's my receipt right there. Oh, isn't that cool? So the nice thing about this is that it's just a link. The actual form doesn't include the image anymore. Even though I attached it up front, you can see that the price is wrong. I got $23.99. I got to fix that. Okay, we'll fix that here. When I attached the image to begin with, it attached it as an attachment, and then when we submitted it, we converted it into a link, and we saved it as a link in the form. And those links, those pictures all got submitted to a separate list, a separate picture library. And here you can see that I've got my images for that expense report, including the last one is indeed the Black Bear Diner, my dinner. It should have been lunch, but whatever, or afternoon delight, whatever you want to call it. So there's my receipt, and we attached that to the form. The form actually converted into a link, uploaded the image here, and replaced the information with the link. That's the second cool technique. Once again, this is out of the box in QRules. If you have that with the sample form, you'll get that. If you want to do this, here's another. This is another example of a web service that is not supported in Office 365. You need to actually use the SharePoint DLL. Now, when you're, and this is a coding topic, and we're going to talk more about this on Saturday. If you're in the Seattle area, there's an Office 365 Saturday here. We'll be demoing it. But there's a couple of gotchas. First of all, I want to talk about, before I go to the other demos, we've got two more demos, by the way. We're going to show you how to use graphs in your form as well as CAPTCHA, which is really, really cool. But before there, I want to just highlight one designer gotcha first. If you've got the form in the designer and you want to preview it, well, guess what? The SharePoint DLL that you're using for the object model isn't there because it's not running locally, it's running on the SharePoint server. So you're not going to be able to preview the code that you write for it to work on 365. So what do? So there's a couple techniques. You can actually try to detect whether you're in the browser on open. When the form opens up, you can have a little logic in your form that detects whether or not it's the browser form, and if it is, then it calls the DLL. DLL stands for Dynamic Link Library, and this is just code. When you see DLL, you just know that that's just code in the form. You can do a try-catch in your code, and you can try to call the SharePoint DLL stuff. If it fails, you can use regular stuff. You can catch that failure. And then you can also just run the debugger on the server, and you know that that's where the code exists, the DLL for SharePoint object model stuff that is there on the server. And you can also download it to your local machine and do it. So there's some techniques and gotchas. A couple more demos for you. These are pretty cool. So there's my expense report item. I'm going to go back to the expense report library here. You're going to get this form as part of the packet today if you send us email. And this form is kind of nice. Like I said earlier, this form has that. It senses whether the form is new or not submitted. Gives you some out-of-the-box goodness. You've got the header and the footer. You can replace these with your images. You've also got a nice little change history section here. First edition, whatever. And this then saves it to a read-only section. Now, I can't edit this. It gives me the date, time. It's using Active Directory. It's actually using my login credentials here. I'm the admin on this box, and my email address is actually that Qdabra at Qdabra on Microsoft.com. Even though my name is different, it's storing that. So you'll get this, and like I said, this has the support for the expense report items. You'll have to configure it in the designer to point it at your list, your SharePoint list, and you'll have to configure the image stuff to point to your image library. And the way you do that is in the designer. Here's the form. We go to Data Connections, And where it says upload picture perfect, you're going to change this URL here to your Office 365 site. And then for the expense item submit, we'll change this URL down below, the very beginning of it, everything up to the first, everything up to the second slash, to the change that to your Office 365 server. So you just have to make those two changes. Those will not be documented, but if you have questions, you can come back to us later. Okay, so two more cool things, and then we'll just finish this up. Let's close this out here. The Office 365 is, of course, SharePoint 2010, and that means that you can use it to do really cool things. Now here you see I've got a form, and the form actually, this is a really simple form, and it's got a graph down below. Isn't that interesting? Well, I've got these sales numbers here, and I can just type in some numbers, and as I'm typing in these numbers, notice that the graph is changing. Now this is dynamic, and what we're doing here is you can see we've got this URL, and this is the URL for the image. So we've actually, this form actually has a link to an image. This is pretty cool. And let me just show you this form real quick. Just open this form up in the Designer, and you're going to get all this stuff. So rest assured, we will not leave you in the lurch. So I'm opening up my budget versus actual, and this is in the Designer. Hopefully here, we got the task pane, great. So you can see here that this is just an image field, and if I double click on this chart, you can see that I've got a calculated value. And that's where I've got my this long calculated value. It's concatenating the URL from my Office 365 server with this Excel REST API. So with 2010, what you get is you get out of the box Excel web services. And you can access those Excel web services using the REST API. And what you can do is you can call on that web service. You can say, hey, Excel, I want an image for this chart. Now you have to have a chart that's uploaded to the site. So in this case, we've actually uploaded a chart here to the SharePoint, the Shared Documents library. I've got my test chart here. If I click on that, you'll see that I've got this test spreadsheet here. And this has just some bogus values in it, right? These values are not what I'm getting. I'm actually getting the actuals, getting the budget values, but not the actuals. I'm replacing the actuals. So you upload your spreadsheet to Office 365, and then what you do is you go to your form, and in your form, you just reference it. And the form literally just references that, that spreadsheet. And then what you can do is you can pass values from your form to that reference. And when you do that, then you can say, I want the image resulting from this. And it's not actually updating the spreadsheet, but it's just calling it, and then it's having it calculated there on the fly. So if you ever wanted to put images in your InfoPath form in the browser, you can do it now with this Excel web service stuff. And this is really nice to show people numbers that are changing. It doesn't have to be a line graph here. It can be something else. It can be a pie chart. But you can graphically show them this updating image as they're making changes to their form. So this is really cool. You have now charting capabilities in InfoPath via Excel web services, and you'll get that sample. So one more really cool thing, and how many people have actually wanted to use CAPTCHA with InfoPath? You've got an InfoPath browser form. You want to use CAPTCHA with it, right? If you have wanted to do that in the past, change your feedback to blue just to give me a quick sense of how many people out there have actually wanted to put CAPTCHA in their browser forms. Maybe nobody. Maybe this is not important. Oh, Patrick. Okay, thank you, Mr. Figgett, for I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly there, and Bruce as well. Okay, great. So, and I don't know if you were successful or not, but we have a new, thanks to Hillary, we have a new cool little demo for you today, and sample. Okay, so this is just a stupid form. It's got a title, a couple fields, and it's got our CAPTCHA XML template part. Cool. Okay, so we're just going to put in, let's see here, Hillary's name. Why not? I don't know what her birthday is. It's just say it's going to be 5/10/1980. She's, I don't think she's that young, but we don't want to guess in the opposite direction. Now you can see there that this CAPTCHA image is just an image, and this is in the browser. And of course, I can refresh it. I don't like that. I can't see it. I can refresh and get another image. No problem. Now when I check it off, so I can't submit it unless I've actually checked it. Okay, there we go. Now I can submit it. So, basically, this is a really cool control that you can add to all your forms, and it uses a web service, and the web service is external to Microsoft Office 365. Now let's take a look. So we've got our sample here, CAPTCHA XSN. Okay, yes indeed, you cannot have two dialog boxes open at the same time. Okay, we understand that. Looking at the CAPTCHA sample here, you can see that this is an Excel template part that we added. You'll get the sample here, and if you want the template part, you'll have to just let us know. Maybe I'll find it and throw it in here. I should probably do that. In the data connections, you can see here that I've got, I'm calling these web services. Now, these web services are not provided by Microsoft, and they're not provided by Qdabra either. There's a guy out there on the web that has actually created these web services, and you can see here that I have to convert them into a UDC file to get it to work on SharePoint, Office 365. And this is the other takeaway here, is that you need to convert your SOAP web service calls to UDCs if they're not in the domain. And you need to make sure that the web service is trusted and everything. Now, you'll get a sample. I'll give you the XML template part so that you can add this to your form. And when you do that, you'll see the web services there. You will need to convert them to universal data connections, and the way you do that is just through the designer. You'll notice that I don't have the ability to convert these because they've already been converted. But if these aren't converted, this convert to connection link here, this button will be enabled. When you click on that, it'll ask you for a SharePoint document, a data connection library, and then you can just give it, you can just create a data connection library, and you can see here that I've actually uploaded these connections as UDC files. I've got 3 of them, and there's the get new word CAPTCHA, the validated image CAPTCHA, and the abandoned image word CAPTCHA. And those 3 web methods you just want to convert to, you can see there's a misspelling there, but you just want to convert those to UDC files, and then they will work in Office 365 with no problem. Okay, so quickly recapping then where we were with our presentation. Key takeaways are you're going to have to use the SharePoint object model if you're calling the lists web service. Not all the web services are supported. For example, term sets. You can't get term sets in your browser forms in InfoPath, even with Curios. It doesn't work. They don't provide that as part of Office 365. SharePoint 2010 does. 365 doesn't. If you are using web services that are not on SharePoint Office 365 and they're external, you'll need to convert them to UDCs. And it's just some example of that with the CAPTCHA web service. And then let's see. There's let's see here. So we went through the demos. The main designer guide we talked about. Here are the references. We'll get this. There's 3 references here. There's the 2 references I showed you, and then there's a site. Our training site has a list of these channeling videos we did last year. Once again, we do provide this new Quick Start seminar if you're interested in quickly refreshing your InfoPath knowledge or adding to it. We did this last week, and I think it was well received. And we just go through a lot of different things, trying to help you go from a small form creation process to really scale it up so you can handle all of your business processes. So as part of this webinar, you're going to get, if you send email feedback to Course Manager, so sending feedback means send an email to us, say, hey, I like the webinar, or hey, you guys should do this differently, here's how. You can send us feedback. We will send you, as part of the reply to your feedback, we will send you the packet of the goodies. And that's going to include the starter form that you saw with 2 roles injected in it. It's going to include the Excel REST form with the cool charting example. It's going to include the CAPTCHA sample and the presentation you see here. And for all webinar attendees, if the first person who sends that Course Manager feedback will get a free version of Curios 4.1. If you already have it, we'll extend your subscription for a year. And that's pretty much it. Any questions for me? You've got the Q&A up at the top. And it's been a pleasure presenting to you today. Went a little bit over, sorry about that. But I am here to answer any questions you might have. If you like the webinar, please give me some quick feedback and change your status red. And otherwise, if you did not like it, you don't change the color, and we'll know how many people are still paying attention here. Or not, excuse me. Thank you very much for that wonderful positive feedback. Like I said, send an email to Course Manager at Qdabra.com. That's Course Manager, all one word, and we will send you the goodies. We're doing it a little bit different than we usually do because we just want to make sure that you got to this point in the presentation. I don't know why we're doing it that way this week. If you don't like that, let me know. If you got questions for me, I am here for a few more minutes. And thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful day.